Howdy y'all, Andrew King III here, and welcome to another episode of King's Comics. Today's episode, we're going to be going over another single issue review, this time about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #1 by Tom Taylor and featuring art by Juan Cabal and Marcelo Ferrara. I really hope that I said that correctly. Now, I mentioned that there are two artists for this book because there is actually kind of a Part A and a Part B story. It's rather interesting because, yes, you have two different storylines going on, but one of them's kind of a epilogue story going on in this first issue that it looks like will build into something later as the series goes on. That being said, I'm already a little bit behind in this series, but I'm trying to catch up very quickly just for y'all. But let's go ahead and dive into this review. Now, Tom Taylor, some of you may or may not be familiar with him, but as far as I can tell, he kind of blew up by first writing for DC Comics. He was doing the Injustice comic tie-in, and I'm personally not really a fan of media tie-ins to movies or video games, but I have to admit, the comic was fantastic. In fact, it's arguably better than the game. Not that I didn't enjoy the game, I thought the mechanics were fantastic, but the comic was incredibly well written. It characterized what was going on within this 5-year period between Superman going crazy and then the events of the Injustice video game, and I just thought it was fantastic. And then you go into, there were some highs and lows kind of after Tom Taylor's writing, and then it got better, I think, once he returned to it, but that's neither here nor there. Now he's writing for Marvel, and he's actually done a lot of work for Marvel, writing Wolverine's all-new Wolverine, as well as now Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. There's a lot of other work, but those are kind of his more predominant ones, at least to me. Then we get into Juan Cabal. This guy, I actually have to admit, I do not know a lot about, but just in a little bit of research, it looks like he's done a lot of work for Marvel as well, or rather more recently. He's also worked most predominantly alongside Tom Taylor, doing books such as Wolverine's, as well as now Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and All New Wolverine. So he's getting up there as well, but now we come to Marcelo Ferrara, once again the author of the kind of epilogue story for this issue. And Marcelo Ferrara is now, it looks like this is his first book for one of the big two publishers, this being Marvel and DC, but this looks like his first book for a big publisher. He's worked on the past a lot on IDW comics. Interestingly enough, he was doing media tie-ins such as Angry Birds and Transformers crossovers, the Ninja Turtle animated series comic, and I think the How to Train Your Dragon comic. A lot of kind of interesting hit and miss comics, but either way, that's neither here nor there. Now he's in the big leagues, writing and illustrating for Marvel. But let's keep it going. So this is going to be minor spoiler alert, I'm just going to say, but let's go over the story as well as what it involves. This is, as it indicates from the title, about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It reduces the scope, not Spider-Man teaming up with the Avengers or doing any cosmic runs or missions, but just how he's interacting in his day-to-day, not just as Spider-Man, but also as Peter Parker. It goes into his home life in his apartment complex, helping out an old lady carry her groceries, as well as him rescuing a family that's about to be driven off of a bridge during a collapse. It was really fantastic because there were no actual supervillains in the comic, other than once you get to the epilogue story when you do see Wilson Fisk. But there was nothing spectacular or amazing in terms of what was going on, other than the fact that he's just helping people out. He's even offered money at one point by the people by the family he rescues, and instead he tells them to go donate it to some homeless people. This is honestly just a very earnest look at Peter Parker and Spider-Man as just very humanitarian, down-to-earth people, which is some of the best writing you can do for Spider-Man, is when you focus on his day-to-day and kind of layman interactions, not so much him being a superhero, but just being a hero. That being said, let's kind of move forward as to the story progresses with him rescuing this family, his day-to-day interactions, but also in the primary story, him interacting with this young woman named Leilani. And she's kind of a homebody, stays in her apartment. She says there are people out to get her, but we have no idea what this entails. The story kind of progresses from there with him just trying to interact with this girl and kind of draw her out of her shell a little bit before she's kidnapped by what looks to be just some, I guess, criminals who she was alluding to earlier. However, Peter Parker comes in at the wrong time, they fade him real quick, but here's the thing, they knock him out. Now you have to remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's not the easiest thing in the world to knock this dude out, and they managed to blow him through a wall. So the mystery kind of thickens right here as to who's after Leilani, why, and how on earth do they have a bruiser who's able to bust through Spider-Man so easily. the mystery thickens even more when he gets back to his apartment, about to track down Leilani as well as her kidnappers, and finds a laundry basket with two kind of alien-looking children in it. Once again, spoiler alert, that's how the comic ends. It also has a very funny interaction with him and his roommate, who, for those who have been keeping up with the mainline Amazing Spider-Man comics, written by Nick Spencer, then you're apprised of the fact that his roommate is none other than Boomerang. So that Boomerang, from Marvel Comics, leader of the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, for anyone who read that run, also by Nick Spencer, but not to be confused with Captain Boomerang, the Flash villain from DC Comics. So this was honestly a great first issue. I really like it. I thought that Cabal did wonderfully on the art, and I thought that Tom Taylor, as usual, brought it with the story. He did really well. This is an instant subscription for me, especially as we go into the epilogue story that I keep alluding to. Now, Cabal illustrated the mainline story, and Tom Taylor wrote. In this kind of epilogue story, it's really short and sweet, but fantastic. I mean, it just punches straight to the gut. We have this kind of just minor storyline about Peter Parker. He's back with Mary Jane, as we also know from reading the Amazing Spider-Man mainline comics by Nick Spencer. But we see that he's back with Mary Jane, and the narrative is actually predominantly told from the point of view of Aunt May, in a letter she appears to be writing to Peter. And we see from there that May is going somewhere. Peter Parker as Spider-Man is trying to kind of spy on her, track her down, but he gets thrown off when he has to stop a bullying attempt by some children. He then, and this is also playing into this theme of him as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, is he then goes on the bus that the children are on, those who were bullying and the kid who was getting bullied, and he gives them a little heroic speech on bullying, talking to them, a monologue. We don't actually get to see that part because we go forth following Aunt May to this hospital she's going on, that the Kingpin is actually commemorating to his wife, I believe, as she's entering. She confronts him right then and there, in fact, just kind of calling him a bully as well. Interestingly enough, calling him a bully and a supervillain, just giving no craps. I mean, just going straight into this hospital, calling him out, and not even caring that she just dissed the Kingpin. This is where we kind of start to put the pieces together that something much larger is going on in the story, as well as her actions, as we see her outside of a cancer ward at the end of the comic. Now, this has huge implications because, one, as we've seen with Nick Spencer's writing of Amazing Spider-Man, he's already made a big change in terms of having Spider-Man room with a supervillain, as well as get back together with Mary Jane. So those are two very interesting dynamics that Nick Spencer has going on. But now Tom Taylor has brought in this other just blind side by having the suggestion that Aunt May have been diagnosed with cancer. This is also kind of an interesting direction to take, because the last time that Aunt May was about to pass away, then did die, we got Spider-Man Back in Black, as well as I think Brand New Day, which was the storyline involving Peter Parker and Mary Jane initially breaking up and divorcing because Peter Parker had pretty much sacrificed their holy matrimony in order to bring Aunt May back to life, as well as to have his secret identity become secret again throughout the world. This is all very weird comic mumbo-jumbo stuff, etc., etc. Some of you may or may not be familiar with all this. All that to say, Tom Taylor did excellent with this story for both his main story and then this epilogue kind of part B story going on. He's got the kind of superhero story going on in part A towards the end of it, and then he's got this very human grounding just story at the end. All in all, it was a fantastic issue. I'm probably just gonna, if I had to give it an arbitrary score, I'd say A or A+. I really liked it. I want to see where this series goes, so yep, I'm subscribing. That's that. I'm gonna keep giving you updates, I guess monthly is when it comes out, as it comes out, but I've already got 2 and 3. I just need to post my reviews on those. But that being said, y'all, this was a fantastic comic. Both artists, Juan and Cabal and Ferrara brought it. It was fantastic to read, and I look forward to what these two artists, this writer and this creative team as a whole, has planned for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. But that is all for today, folks. Another wonderful issue reviewed by yours truly. And as always, I recommend you to go out, buy it, support the creators, and form your own opinions. But thank you for tuning in to another episode of King's Comics. If you liked what you saw today, please hit that like button. If you really liked it, please hit the subscribe button. And if there's anything I can improve upon, or you'd like to start a discussion, or you'd like to see some content, please drop a line down below in the comments. I will not be offended. And that being said, guys, thank you so much. Please tune in next time. I'm going to be reviewing more single issue comics as well as trades coming soon. And if you don't know what a trade is, please check out my just kind of Comics 101 link on what a trade entails and comic collecting. I'll probably be posting more of those soon. But I digress. Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. And this has been another episode of King's Comics.